I remember I was at the race in Oceanside. It was the night before, and I'd been to the pro meeting, and, you know, I'm looking around at these monsters sitting beside, you know, here's Matty Reed sitting beside me over here. Here's Tim DeBoom, and here's all these, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? I felt like I could keep up on the bike and the run, but the swim was just crushing me at that point. And at the same time, I mean, you got these guys approaching an hour off the bike in a half marathon. You know, it's like, man, what are you doing? And at that point, my nerves were getting me so bad that I was literally sick throughout the entire night. I mean, I was vomiting. You know, Jen was up with me, and we thought I had the flu, but looking back, I know it was just nerves, you know? And so it was about 2 a.m. I took my bike apart, packed it up so I wouldn't change my mind. And I was like, I'm not racing tomorrow. This is it. I'm not doing it. And I can remember my parents were there with us in the hotel room, and my dad just shakes his head and he goes, thank God. He was like, because he could tell I was just getting eaten alive mentally, you know. And so the next day we went to the zoo instead. You know, we had fun, and I went on a run that next day, and I thought, you know what, I'm pretty good at this part of it, especially going long. Let's give that a go, you know. So that's how it kind of started from there, and thank goodness I did that, because I was starting to beat my head against the wall again.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete podcast. We are Jess and BJ, and we're on a mission to create a better world. Yes, our small business model has birthed itself a massive global intention. So we thank you for assisting us along the way. The listeners who are supporting this podcast through a monthly pledge on Patreon are single-handedly keeping this podcast and the Awake Athlete podcast commercial free. So thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we literally would not be able to continue this show without you. For all of you who are tuning in weekly, sharing the show with your friends, we are so grateful, because with the growth of each episode, we are able to share life transformative knowledge. And that, my friends, is just one of the ways that you are assisting us in creating a better world, which I believe is a perfect segue into today's guest. We have Craig Howie with us today, and he is a person who, as long as I've known him, as long as BJ has known him, which I think we probably met you at the same moment in our lives, Craig has lived his truth. In other words, he is someone who is living his purpose. And BJ and I know that this has come with great challenge and great risk. Craig came into our lives during our early days in Boulder, Colorado, when he was pursuing his dreams in triathlon. Craig became our first triathlon coach, one of my first massage therapy clients, and a lifelong friend who has always been there to support our goals and visions of the future. Craig went on to become a professional triathlete and ultra runner, all the while keeping his love for music alive. He and his wife, Jen, were in a band for many years, and you may actually still be in a band, but their most epic and most recent reality creation is being found within their guitar company, Howie Guitars, where Craig hand makes every single piece from scratch. Having zero idea of how to start a guitar company or make a guitar did not stop them. Nothing stops Craig from doing what is on his heart and what he wants in this life. And that, my friends, is why we are here. We are here to find our purpose and to live it, and to let nothing stand in our way. So Craig's ventures have always been fueled by what he calls the beginner's brain, and coupled with his wife's philosophy of failing fast, Craig has allowed himself the space to simply go for it time and again. Craig, welcome to the show. We are so psyched to have you here with us today.
Oh, it's an honor. I really appreciate it, guys. Anxious to talk to you.
And it's 11:11, which is a very serendipitous number. So.
I have to say, I had some serious deja vu when we first started today. Wow, it just sunk in pretty hard.
What, like our history?
Yeah. Well, just pushing the button even to join the session, I had just a flash of deja vu that was pretty overwhelming.
Tell us more about that. Why overwhelming, like emotion? Did you feel emotion?
Absolutely. And I could have sworn that we've done this. I mean, just I could have sworn, a long time ago somehow. So,
I like that. I like that because I'm sure we did.
Yeah, I'm sure at one point
we did, and we are, and we just wrapped it up in whatever dimension of life that is that we're living.
Exactly.
So, my gosh, so
where
you
do we
were
start?
I know, where do we start? Like, you were our first triathlon coach, and you influenced so much about how we coach, about how we train, holding ourselves back. And really, Craig introduced us to the math method, to, the conversational pace. But give the audience background on, and some people might be having deja vu too, going, wait, have they had him on the show before? Because we've talked about you over the years as being such a big influence in our lives and what we've learned from you. But people who may not know you, give them a background, like what got you into triathlon and really what I'm asking you to do is sum up a massive part of your life so people can understand who you are a little bit more. Yeah,
boy. I mean, for me, it always starts back when I was a wrestler and, it was definitely wanting to be a wrestler and wanting to be an Olympian and wanting to be the best at, some kind of sport. But my senior year in high school, I destroyed my knee, as Jess will know really well. She's worked on that knee many times. And so, and it put me into just a super, super low point where I could hardly walk. I was just demolished by it because it pretty much cut off that dream with wrestling. But in rehab, I had to ride a bike a lot, and eventually I could run again. I had always run, cutting weight, of course, for wrestling. And then I just luckily befriended a coach at my college that taught me how to swim. And I thought, okay, I'd heard of this Ironman thing. So I was like, all right, let's give this a go. And went through that for a long time and started being a math teacher. I got my degree in math and found out really quickly that wasn't for me, teaching math to high school kids. No offense, high school kids and teachers out there. And so, I had, at that point, I had connected with the Boulder Center for Sports Medicine in Boulder, Colorado. And I was kind of the mouse in the corner for a long time there and learned their methods. And then they kind of endorsed me. And I thought, you know what, let's just do this. Let's start coaching and trying to be a professional. And so, went for it. And, and BJ, looking back, I think BJ was my very first athlete. I think so. If I look out, man, I'll have to look back as far as triathlon goes, because
I think Matt Kolb connected us.
That's right.
I want to say.
That's right.
I remember you coming into my living room on the place that we rented from Matt, and you extended, this is the plan. This is
That's
what I do. The poster.
Oh my God. Yeah. We used to blow up our master plan. And that was wallpaper.
The yellow, the red, the greens.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The base phase, the build phase, the peak phase.
And taper.
I don't know if Matt was already, I think he might've been already an athlete, with you. I wasn't sure, but he definitely introduced me to you in terms of, wanting to get into this sport. Yeah.
Maybe it was Matt, but I just remember so clear that was the beginning, that was definitely the start. And, really quickly it was just word of mouth from there. And pretty much the basis of the coaching that I learned was slow down, stupid. That was pretty much what I learned from the center. I was out beating my head against the wall every single day and not making any progress and wondering why. And they just said slow down, and then of course with the math background, I really thrived on their mathematical approach to it. So yeah.
And so we're talking about the Boulder Center for Sports Medicine, which is wow. I mean, that's a pretty amazing place to be. As a new triathlete, I'm going in there, I'm getting my LT test and all of this, but really, one of the people that was an influence in your life is Neil Henderson,
right,
who is just an amazing coach. coaches high performance athletes. And at the time he was working at the Boulder Center. And, so here's, an influence in your life, which then became an influence in our life. And my God, I don't want to say luck. I really don't think there's luck in this world. So I'm just going to put out like major gratitude for the alignment that the three of us had to have such an amazing resource. And Neil is so humble. Like he's so cool and he's brilliant.
Yep. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I often talk about Neil as the giant that I stood on his shoulders. You know what I mean? He took me to a level right away that I didn't belong at that point, but then he gave me the legitimacy of, I would bring the athletes into the center and they would see, no, this is serious, this is the real deal. So yeah, and I think Beej, like in his second season, was like doing VO2 max training with you. Yeah. Like you were always just so generous, like taking, as Neil took you under his wing, like you took Beej under your wing and really introduced him to high level performance, which I think had a massive impact on the athlete he is today. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say same here in reverse order. I can remember all the swim sets we did together, Beej,
Yeah. I think people who know me see me as a swimmer now, but you saw me when I was a swimmer, when I was just barely able to get to the other side of the pool. And you were like, you were allowing me, you showed me that I could jump in the pool. First thing I had to do was get underwater and hold my breath. Right? Because I was so panicky and scared to get to the other side. And you were just like, okay, well, let's step it back and let's just go underwater and be okay with being underwater.
And the snorkel. We did so much snorkel work. Yeah.
Which is funny because I'm a huge believer right now in using everything that you taught me, obviously.
I can see I have a snorkel mark on my forehead right now from the pool set I just did.
Excellent. Oh, that thing is so helpful. Helpful.
The snorkel, the tempo trainer. But, I recall, I was thinking back as I was approaching this podcast, like the level that you allowed me to enter the sport into. Recalling my favorite day of the week was Thursday mornings where, I would swim masters at 5:30, at 5:45 at the South Boulder Rec Center, and then ride my bike up to the Boulder Center where I would meet you and we would do VO2 sets. We would use oxygen.
Yeah.
This is me, like average Joe triathlete. Craig, I think you were a coach or in that transition of becoming a professional.
Yep.
And we're side by side with Neil Henderson putting on the Tour de France to watch. And we're like using these oxygen tanks. And soon after, like you were replacing them and you like knew your way around. And then we would get off the bike and I would bike home and I would do these hard run sets. So that was like one morning, of my life. And we would do that every week. And I remember just how supportive you were in not only allowing me to come into the center and do these workouts with you, but to have me have my own experience where I was like suffering and pushing through, and you were still coaching me during your while you were gritting it out. So
Oh my God, that's so you, Craig.
I was gonna
just
say,
like always giving, always supporting, always being amazing to everyone around you.
Well, I was gonna say it's reversed, right? You were keeping me company, man. I didn't want to suffer on my own. That's all. Man, dude, Z5 on a trainer with oxygen on your face, man, you gotta, that's some hard stuff.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, I miss that.
Do you miss, I don't know. We haven't talked in a long time, but I don't know what your activity level's like now, but do you miss that part of your life or some aspect of it?
So much. Yeah. I mean, so after my last race was Leadville 2014. And I remember the night before that race knowing this is it. This is my last one, because it was just, I was at peace. I could hear like my whole crew was in the kitchen goofing around, having fun. I was trying to sleep, but it was just so peaceful. And I just loved how much support I was just smiling, thinking of how much support I had sitting in that kitchen, you know, and they were all friends. And I knew that they were just going to, you know, they're going to stay up all night the next day for me. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you know, that's love, you know? So I remember thinking, yeah, let's go out here, you know? But so after that race, I just, you know, I knew I wanted to stop, but oh my gosh, what a low point. I mean, I you know, I preface this with, I don't hold a candle to any kind of a soldier out there, but I do think there is almost a post-endurance stress syndrome. You know what I mean? If you go from a super high endorphin, high level of activity to, you know, I kept going, I kept running, but it just wasn't the same. You know what I mean? And so, man, that was a low point. But, you know, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going. Just keep going. Keep going down this road. This is so
good. Since then, you know, so Leadville, then I'm not sure where it is now, but it was mid-August. And anyway, we went, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, and I started running. And we were in the process of trying to revamp a new house. We bought an old beater and we're, you know, fixing it up, my dad and my wife and I kept running. And so, you know, here we are, 2020, and I haven't missed a day of running since then. And that's what's gotten me out the door, is the streak, you know, so it's 6+ years of not missing a day of running. And it's not like I'm going out and running a marathon every day, but I run every day. You know, no matter what the pace, no matter what you know, sometimes I'll do intervals just because I got to get that little kick of endorphin, you know what I mean? And some days, like, I can remember having the flu and running a mile, and that was it. But I ran, you know what I mean? So that's where I am now, you know, it's just the consistency is what gets me out the door as opposed to training for something. You know, it's like,
oh my God. That's a huge streak. 6 years. Yeah. That's amazing. So after Leadville, you said you hit a low point.
Oh boy.
Can you share more about that? Like, I mean, and when did because the light shined in, because you're still here. Yay.
Yeah, thank goodness.
You know, I mean, seriously, like I think we've all, you know, I'll speak for myself. I've definitely had moments in my life where I'm just like, my God, like this is too much. It's too heavy. Yeah. Like I just want that relief now. And what does that mean? Like, if I keep living, that means I'm going to have to live with this weight until I don't have to carry it. And you don't know when that's going to be. So yeah, what is a low point? What did it look like for you? What did it feel like? What was your relationships like?
I was still coaching, but it was so much different. I joined forces a little bit with Fast Forward Sports at the time, and I was helping them, and I was still doing my own thing. And man, I was just lost, completely lost. I mean, and luckily, one of my closest friends and friends to you guys too, Dana Willett, and we were talking one day. We were at the I'm forgetting which rec center it is in Boulder, but she was doing the you know, the compression legs, you know, the flowing our legs. I remember sitting there so clear, and she was like, "You need some help, buddy." You know, and it's true. And I did. So she hooked me up with a life coach. Shout out to Sherry Felix here in Boulder, Distilled Coaching. And so, yeah, went down some dark roads with Sherry, me and I, and you know, she helped me a ton. She, you know, got me to, at least back to semi-normal, and then I could build from there, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and you guys are so strong in this, but, to this day, one of the biggest things is meditation. That was her main thing, was getting me on meditation and going from there. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what were those first early stages of meditation like?
Oh, awful. And
they
do.
They absolutely sucked for me. Absolutely sucked.
And she would probably yell at me, because I've definitely morphed how I meditate to this point, you know, because at first it was me doing the classic. I would try to sit down in a quiet room and, legs crossed, everything, do it like, classic style. And, I know it's a cliche, but I was just awful at it, just monkey brain like crazy, So I morphed it a little bit. I would start to do it at the end of a run. That helped me be a little bit more consistent, linking it to the run. And what I would do is I would sit by, we live by a nice little stream. So I would sit by the stream. The water helped a lot. And, so that's still post run. I've got the water, but it's really morphed into more of like a lot of the guitar work is meditative because, for example, you have to dress the frets on a guitar, and it's just a really simple task that you do over and over and over and over. And so it's just, you can just sink into it. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things like that with building guitars where I always joke that I'm a professional sander because I'm not a luthier or a guitar builder. All I do is sand all day. My hands are just, rawhide because I sand all the time. So, but yeah, boy, I haven't thought about Sherry in a long time. That really takes me back. She picked me up for sure.
Yeah, but you took the action, it's just, again, I don't think there's any luck. I think everything is very purposeful in how it aligns in our life. And that moment when Dana looked at you and was like, dude, you need some help. And then you took the action. And so that's the biggest thing. And I think it's really easy for us to say like, oh gosh, she did this for me. But your coach would probably be the first person to say, no, you did it. I just gave you the tools and the permission to use those tools. And that's why as an athlete, like having that athletic background, it's like you get the tools and you stick with it. And, when the meditation is crappy, when you're, you've got an athlete body and you're sitting cross-legged, like that can be painful. And, like we're going to just sit there and we're going to complete what we started. That's amazing. I didn't know that you were meditating. And then the water makes so much sense because the water, if you think about water, like water cuts rock, like water always finds a way. Yeah.
And so consistent, the consistency of it was, I think, a huge part of it for me. And I mean, like I said, I'm very amateurish, I guess I would say, with meditation. Like that was the end of it for me. She basically was like, look, you need to do this. So I did it. And I've done it since, but that was it. I haven't delved into it more or tried to learn more about it. I've just kind of found my own way with it. And, so.
But you're simply, so the thoughts are like fighting for attention. And so when you sit by the stream, you're able to notice, and I'm just asking you this here, and you could say it's wrong or right, but you're able to see the thoughts come in, but your attention then goes to the running water so that you have some sort of focus where you're not giving and indulging in every single thought that wants to vie for your attention. Is that somewhat of what's happening? Absolutely.
Sometimes just the sound helps, and then I'll close my eyes and I have to count. So I literally picture it's my favorite spot up in the Bighorn Mountains. You've been there, BJ, up there at the cabin. Yeah. And I picture that spot, and then I picture the number, basically in front of my face in that spot. And as soon as I feel like I've really pictured one really well, I'll move on to two. You know what I mean? And then I'll move on to three and so forth. And, it's like I said, it's not long, it's, sometimes it's 3 minutes because I'm got to go make breakfast, but curious,
as an athlete, well, one, do you wear a heart rate monitor still when you run, or are you just running?
Just running. Yeah. And I'm so, well, it's funny because my oldest son, Grable, is a really good runner, but his focus is like the 400 and the 800. And we went out, and I coach him and train him too. And we go out and do some workouts together, and I really have to hold him back. Of course, he's 17, wants to, crush the world, And,
Whoa, I remember when he was born.
I know, right? Yeah, and he's a senior, guys. It's killing me. He's killing me. So, but, so we would go out and run, and finally we got to the point where we would be on the track, and I would make him stay behind me. And I would say, I'm going to hold you right at 6:30s. And he'd be like, whatever, Dad. There's no way you can, just know where you're at. But I bet you two could do the same thing. It's just at some point, your body, and you know what it feels like, and so after that, he trusted me a little bit more.
So when you do these, I think that's so powerful to how we coach, because we like to relate information with a feel, right? Because those 2 data points or 3 data points, it's always good to have more than one. But athletes get to tend to be all consumed with one, like the numbers.
Especially the heart rate.
Especially the heart rate. But I was curious to know, when you do these runs, and then whatever pace they are, and then you sit there still, do you feel a sense of a calming or a sense of relief, or like a weight has been lifted, even though it could be a temporary, second or minute of like,
yes,
calm?
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think, whereas before it was, gratitude and happiness that I made it through the workout. Now it's just like, honestly, I think I added another day to the streak. That's one of the biggest things. Oh, got one more in. You know what I mean? It's, I'm trying really hard to not let it be a wearing thing, like a jail, and just think of, okay, you got out the door again,
Yeah.
So.
I'm interested to know about the benefits that you have seen, if any, in the way you relate to your kids and relate to your wife, Jen, because of your meditation practice.
Yeah.
What has it afforded you?
Well, and man, I hesitate to call it a practice because, like I said, I still am not very good at it, but I try.
It doesn't matter. You can't be bad at it. You can't.
Yeah.
The fact that you show up for it is a huge win.
Yeah.
There's your win. You're amazing. You're a professional meditator.
We tried it. Yeah. No, I think with the boys especially, it's a matter of what I catch myself doing a lot of times is, okay, I'm hanging out with my youngest son, Griffin, and we're having fun, say we're playing basketball or something. I catch myself being like, man, I should be in the garage doing, I should be in the shop. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And it's like, man, knock it off. Just be right here, and I mean, because, before you know it, they're going to be gone and you're going to miss this so much. So it's like you go through that whole thing in your head in about 2 seconds, and then, all right, get back to it, So I suppose the same as, with meditation, when you're like, knock it off, stop thinking about that. Come back to the, the breath, the water, the numbers, the, whatever it is.
Do you find that same, like, that's what we call getting in the gap? Do you find that same gap in the way that you relate to your wife?
Oh yeah. Same exact situation. Like, make sure you're paying attention, listen, it's like my brain will start to go somewhere else and be like, knock it off.
Yeah. And, we meditate to make the mind one focus, one pointed in its focus. And I love how you do it with the numbers. Like, you get really focused on one.
Yeah. Is it
Move
there?
to 2. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's the same thing with the building up guitars, because you can't, I know you referenced the sanding, but each stroke matters.
Oh, exactly. And it's what gets me is I have to focus in on the task at hand at that very moment. Even if it's, even putting glue on something, you have to do it right. You know what I mean? If you don't do it in a certain way, the end result's going to be not as good. And, so I think of a lot like, like say engineering, or like say building something like a deck, a tiny, tiny little mistake at the beginning is going to be huge at the end. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, stay right here. Focus on just this. So, yeah.
I want to go backtrack a little bit and talk about your transition from triathlon to ultra running.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I saw it happening from afar. We had already moved away from Boulder. And so we were watching it from afar. But what I was working with you right up until we left Boulder, 2010.
Wow.
Yeah. And you had a bike accident.
Yes.
Remember that?
Oh gosh.
Yes, we did I had taken a trauma in the body class, and you were my perfect specimen. We did some really cool work. There was one thing about you, Craig. You were always open to whatever crazy shit I was bringing to you. I was like, okay, we're going to do this today.
Oh, that's what I mean. I mean, you've seen me at my most vulnerable for sure.
Yeah. So how do you make the transition from, triathlon to ultra running?
It was, so I remember I was at the race in Oceanside, and it was the night before, and I'd been to the pro meeting, and I'm looking around at these monsters sitting beside, here's Maddie Reed sitting beside me over here, here's Tim Boom, and there's all these, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? I felt like I could keep up on the bike and the run, but the swim was just crushing me at that point. And at the same time, I mean, you got these guys approaching an hour off the bike in a half marathon. It's like, man, what are you doing? And at that point, my nerves were getting me so bad that I was literally sick throughout the entire night. I mean, I was vomiting. Jen was up with me, and we thought I had the flu, but looking back, I know it was just nerves, And so it was about 2 a.m. I took my bike apart, packed it up so I wouldn't change my mind. And I was like, I'm not racing tomorrow. This is it. I'm not doing it. And I can remember my parents were there with us in the hotel room, and my dad just shakes his head and he goes, thank God. He was like, because he could tell I was just getting eaten alive mentally, And so the next day we went to the zoo instead. We had fun, and I went on a run that next day, and I thought, you know what? I'm pretty good at this part of it, especially going long. Let's give that a go, So that's how it kind of started from there. And thank goodness I did that, because I was starting to beat my head against the wall again.
Yeah, there's like you just relented, right? You just like surrendered. You were like, what am I trying to do here? This is it. Clearly it wasn't bringing you joy. Right.
And it was so obvious when I made the choice, because it was like this gigantic weight coming off of my shoulders. I mean, I can remember taking all of my stuff to, I don't know if he was even there still, the pros closet. Mm-hmm. Is it still there? Mm-hmm. And I remember just do with it what you will. Seriously, my bike, my wetsuit, my everything triathlon related except my runners, and like sell it. And
oh my God, that's like a massive life change.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank goodness I was still running. Yeah, and the through line being the running is still, the thing.
The support around you, your mom, your dad, like Jen, your kids, your tight knit community of friends, and we've seen it over the years. It's probably the most, and I think you would agree, the most powerful thing that has allowed you to, for you and Jen to be 100%. These entrepreneurs and to risk things like this. You said your dad was relieved when you did this. How about your mom Dana and Jen and your close knit friends? Because I think that they would have supported you through whatever decision you made. But did they all support you on this decision?
Yeah, they did. I think there was a little bit of sadness on my mom's part. Because she just loved Ironman itself so much. You know what I mean? And Kona and just the culture around it, and she would, I probably to this day, she still watches, the when they do the broadcast of it, afterward, and just the good feel good stories and stuff. And there was some of that with my folks that I was, coaching at the time too, because I think it was a surrender of a dream. It was kind of saying, all right, you know what? I didn't make that one. And I think that was tough for some of them to see, like, man, is he quitting? You know what I mean? And it was just the right thing to do. I just knew it, So, yeah.
So, trail running, is that like a different sport than road running?
Oh my gosh. So the best year I had, the last year, 2014, I always tell this story to anybody that wants to do trail running. I didn't lift a single weight. I didn't go into the gym once. And it's just because trail running it's strength personified. I mean, it is, especially downhilling. I learned that really quick, that if you can be a good downhiller, you can be really good at ultra. But oh my gosh. I mean, here I was at a really high level triathlon wise, and all of a sudden I was so sore in the mornings, just like, what is happening to me? Having to jump over these rocks and like land in weird ways. And, so yeah, it was a huge physical shift as well. And, wish you would have been there, Jess. You could have fixed me up a little bit better. No, I had Todd. You passed me on.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I passed you on to Todd. He's amazing. And I think he's still practicing in Boulder.
Yeah. I'm not sure where he is.
You guys played music together, didn't you? Yeah. Todd is a dear friend of mine from massage school. That I met in massage school. That's right. Yep. Yeah. I think he got into some distance running,
some trail running too. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He went up Green Mountain with me a couple times, and we had some when I was training, and he did some stuff in Moab, and
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I could see you guys getting along pretty well.
Oh yeah.
So math teacher, musician for a long time, and triathlete, pro triathlete, coach. Trail running, all of these things you could look at and go, wow, they're all over the map. But do you feel like there is a thread that has allowed these things to come into your life that like, it just kind of makes sense? Like, oh yeah, well, being a math teacher made sense because now I need this in this sport.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Jen and I were talking about this a lot, and I have, whether it's ego or it's, fear, I have this hope and wish to be unique in some way. And, to make myself set apart. Let's put it this way, a better way to put it. I have a fear of just being dissolved into the masses, I suppose. And so Jen and I were talking about that's kind of a through line with all of it. It's like, okay, you want to do something that's different. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, it was Jen's idea to start the guitars. And, it was just so, when she said it, was like, oh yeah, duh, of course, let's do that, and, I definitely think there's transfer between the sports to the guitars because it's takes so much patience, similar to what all of us have done with Ironman and endurance. It takes so much, patience and, waiting when you really want it to happen right now. You got to wait for it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, people may say, well, that was easy for him because he was a musician, but you didn't know how to build a guitar.
No, not at all.
So it's so funny to hear you say, well, it was Jen's idea. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But no, actually, Craig, it made no sense because you didn't know how to build a guitar.
It's so true. It's so true.
So how do you take that? How do you start? Yeah. Because there's the block that most people would be like,
I got to turn around.
That's a really cool idea, but it's for somebody who knows how to build guitars.
Right. And it was quite a stretch. And I have to give credit back to Todd one more time there too, because he turned me on to these two books. One is called How to Fly a Horse, and the other is called A More Beautiful Question. And both of them were centered around trying something and being really okay with failure, and then just trying to build from there. And, Jen and I, we talked about, should we try to go to school? Have you learned how to do this? And I just resisted it. And for whatever reason, I had just read those books. And so I just went in the garage and started making a mess. And, it was so much about beginner brain, and learning, to do something that's already been done, but maybe you'll come at it in a different way, which I definitely do now. I've had, trained luthiers come into the shop and be like, what are you doing? And sometimes they'll be like, well, man, that's pretty clever. I would have never thought of that. And I think it's because I went at it without getting the outside sources to tell me, oh, this is how it's always been done. But to be honest, I probably spent more money doing it my way because I wasted so much stuff because I kept screwing up so badly. And I still have my very first guitar, and it's a train wreck. it's hilarious.
Can you play it?
It'll play, but it's like there's not one note that's in tune. There's no way. It's like, I mean, the evolution is just crazy from that one to where they are now. So
give us some more background or more explanation around the beginner's brain.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I've learned about it is to try really hard to resist the outside to tell you how something should be done. And that was pretty difficult for me because, I've been coached in my life, and I like, let's say Neil Henderson, for example, he was a fantastic coach for me. And I was kind of used to go do this. Okay. Aye, sir. Right. Off I go. And so it was scary as hell to do it. And I went in and just, I knew what a guitar should look like. I'd played them forever. And I knew some fundamentals. For example, there's a steel rod that goes down the neck. They call it a truss rod. And if you don't have that in a guitar, when you tune it up, the neck will just break because it won't have the strength. So I knew little things like that. And I knew, okay, well, I've got this guitar. And right about that time, my dad gave me his 1964 Gibson that he bought in 64, and he gave me the amp. And so I had this beautiful guitar to just keep looking at. I was like, okay, how did they do that? How did they do that? How did they do that? And so I just built really slowly from there. And every time I would screw up, I would go back and look at the guitar and be like, oh, I bet they did it this way. Go try that. And it's pretty amazing looking back at some of my schematics and just how funny they were, and how just out of whack. And but along with that, having the math background really helps. And I'm very, very obsessed with the golden ratio. My kids, when I was teaching, would, if they wanted me to not teach that day, they'd be like, hey, Howie, tell us about that golden ratio. What's that like, and how does that work? So I knew that eventually I wanted everything to be centered around that. And so I would look at the guitar and I would think, okay, is there a way that I can apply the golden ratio to the situation that I'm in right now where this is not working? And just really slowly it's developed to where the guitars are now. But of course it's not stopping. I mean, it's every single guitar still, I'm trying to do it better. And I'm definitely not done, and I never will be. There's not a perfect guitar for me. So, and
that's the beginner's brain there, right? Like you're always learning, you're always trying, you're always, up leveling. So what is the golden ratio, and like, why are you so obsessed with it?
Right. Oh boy. How much time do you have?
Hey, Howie, tell us about the golden ratio.
Yeah, there we go. We don't want to do algebra today, Howie. So yeah, it's a ratio that you find everywhere in life. And, for example, bees build their hives around it. Every part of our body has it. For example, the distance from your elbow to your wrist compared to your wrist to the tip of your middle finger is the ratio. And it's in our faces. It's in the distance of the planets from the sun. It's in the smallest thing that you can find. You picture, the tiniest little neutron, its distance from the protons or whatever that is. I'm not too versed, but the golden ratio is there. So to me, it's like, it's almost reverent, that number. And I thought, okay, if I can make a guitar that's built around this, people will like it. And there is a thing about it that people look at it and they're just like, there's just something about that guitar. And it's what I've come to see is it does replicate the human body a little bit. You know what I mean? Because everything is based on that ratio. And I'm hoping that's what will cause people to gravitate toward it. So, yeah.
And is that like excuse my non-versed understanding of it, but you've got almost like that kind of conch shell type of image that's like carved into all of your guitars.
Yeah. So one of the best examples of the golden ratio is the Nautilus shell. And the thing about it, when I first started looking into it, I thought, okay, if I can build around a Nautilus shell, there's just so many natural acoustic things about a shell. The whole thing, pick up a shell and put it on your ear, you can hear the ocean, supposedly. And so I took it from that, and I thought, all these other luthiers, when I was still trying to hold the outside world away, and don't tell me how to build a guitar. Some of these luthiers were like, no, you're using the wrong wood. They kept, and it was all about the wood. You have to have spruce. You got to have this. And I thought, well, instead of wood, what about the shape affecting the way it sounds? They were all about the wood is what gives you your tone. And I thought, what about the shape giving you your tone? And I use things such as there's a place in Grand Central Station. We just got to see it. It's called the Whispering Wall. And basically you can stand, I want to say it's like 50 yards apart, and you can whisper in the corner, and the other person in the other corner 50 yards apart can hear what you say because of how it bounces. And there's places like this all over the world. They call them whispering cones. The Sistine Chapel has that. Mormon Tabernacle has it, and it's all mathematics. It's all about how sound bounces. But it turns out that it's the golden ratio that makes it work and drives it all. So that's, yeah. I went off on a tangent.
No, oh my gosh, this
beautiful.
is amazing.
Yeah.
This is such a big purpose. A part of your purpose in your life is to bring this understanding of really this oneness that connects us all, which is this golden ratio.
Truth. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love it. So you've had your coaching business. Jen started an amazing company, Little Potatoes Baby Food. And you guys have been entrepreneurs for as long as we've known you, and we're older than you. And, and I just remember being like, my God, they're younger than us, and they're just like taking all these risks, and they're living the way that they want to live. And, obviously support systems are amazing, and your parents and Jen's mom, like you always had a great support system around you. But what have you learned about taking risks in your life? I mean, because you're a dad too, so people may say, "Oh, well, it's easy because he doesn't." No, you had a baby. You had a baby, little baby Grebo.
Jen had a baby.
Yeah, Jen had a baby. But you guys had like young children, and here you are living your dreams. So you really kind of take excuses off the table for people.
Right.
And, you weren't born into royalty. It's not like you weren't trust fund kids.
Right.
But you've always found a way to make it work. And so what do you have to say about taking risk in your life?
Yeah, like you said, we had the support, it's not like massive, endless support, but what I've figured out so far is, you know what you want to do, and you have to do whatever it takes to not let it die. And so, for example, all the while I'm building, trying to build these guitars, but at the same time I was finishing a basement, for somebody, or I'll be over doing some construction with a buddy to keep the funds coming in, whatever it takes. It's kind of like the starving musicians that have to wait tables at night, things like that. So I donated 88 rounds of plasma to, there's this place called BioLife here, and they pay you like $35 a shot for plasma. And so I literally thought about calling one of my guitars the Plasma Series because it funded a lot of the wood. You know, it was just, so you just don't let it die. Don't let it die. But at the same time, I would have let it die for sure without Jen, without my boys, especially without my mom. Every time I'd be like, I don't know, Ma, she'd be like, you're not going to let this die. You're not, you know, she's the biggest cheerleader by far. And, she also helped us get the patent for one of the guitars too. So it's kind of like she's the driver that doesn't get any of the credit, you know?
What can you say for those that don't know what they want to do? Oh
boy. One of the things I used to always say to the athletes, my triathletes runners, man, I don't know what races to do, or I don't know which way to go. I would always say, let your excitement be your guide. And, you know, if they're talking about doing a race and they're kind of like, yeah, I should probably do that one, be like, no. It's got to be the race where you're like, man, I really want to do that. Look at that beautiful location. Look at all this stuff. So if they were excited about it, that's the right direction. You know what I mean? Kind of let it guide you. So, you know, the second Jen said, you know what, you should build guitars, I was like, of course. That sounds so awesome. You know what I mean? It just, and to this day, it's so fun. You know, it's frustrating at times, of course. I've got a heavy bag sitting right beside me here in the garage. It's better to hit a heavy bag than to destroy the guitar that you're building at that time.
But that's the thread, Craig. That's what lights you up, right? And so
right.
If guitars light you up, if Kona lights you up,
yeah,
you start there. You don't start
right.
with, well, you know, what is the workout I need to do and what meal do I need to eat tonight to prepare for tomorrow? Right. Those are the details. Or how do I start to build guitars? How do you not get caught up in that? How do you keep that? And I know you probably are going to start experiencing that with your two boys. Like they're going to have dreams absolutely. And they're going to be like, Dad, how do I get there? Like, how do I do this?
So true. Well, I actually, you know, listening to you guys' podcast, you talking about the life force. And to me, it's the thing that you have to keep coming back to that makes you excited. You know, it kind of like, I remember you saying in one of the most recent podcasts about, you know, you can be just destroyed from a workout and all you want to do is sleep. And then a buddy comes into town and wants to hang out. And it's that like, where did that energy come from? Where was it before, you know? And so I've got to have that thing, you know, I've got to have that vision. I've got to have, you know, so I mean, for me, one of the biggest things I think about constantly is Dan Auerbach. He's the lead guitarist for the Black Keys. I see him playing one of my guitars. And I'm like, man, every single time, see, I'm getting goosebumps. Just talking about
have them too. Like,
you know what I mean?
all
it's
over
like,
my head.
There we go. He's one of my biggest heroes on the guitar. And, we were at a guitar show one time and he walks right by. We was in Nashville and he was zoned in on, you know, he wasn't stopping. You could tell he didn't want to talk that day. But I just remember walking by and I was just like, you're going to play it, buddy. One of these, you're going to play one of my guitars. And at the same time, I'm shouting like, Dan, if you want one, take it, you know. He was like, who's this guy? This weird guy. But no, I definitely think you need a vision. You need something that, man, when this really sucks, when I just blew up this guitar and wasted all this money, got to see it. So that's one of my main ones. The other one's Gary Clark Jr. I picture him playing my guitar someday, and that fires me up too. So
that's, yeah. I mean, that's no different than
seeing yourself.
Jim Carrey writing himself a $10 million check when he didn't even know how he was going to pay for his next meal, and he carried that check, and then basically got a $10 million check when Ace Ventura.
Did he really?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
so
such
cool.
a great story. And Jim Carrey is a meditator for sure. And according to my teacher, I don't know how he knows this, but that he has reached the super conscious state where, you just become one with all things. And he says that, ever since he got there, like he just wants to get back because it's just the best place ever. And this world is like so hectic and crazy. But if you listen to Jim Carrey speak, you're listening to a man who understands that he is much more than the physical body.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Holy cow. That's so cool. I'm going to have to look into that more.
Yeah. He's really cool. But yeah, he wrote himself a $10 million check. And, for me, it's leading meditation to Team USA at the Olympics.
There you go.
And
there's your vision.
I'm there. Like I've seen it. I felt it. We're there. And there's one thing that I've learned from being on the podcast and talking and writing, that really my greatest excitement and where I feel the most whole is when I'm leading people in meditation.
There you go. Yeah. You're going to do it. I believe it. You'll do it.
I know you will. I know I will. And I know you will too. Okay. Now we're going to get BJ's dream. What's your dream, Beach?
Oh, my dream is to bring an athlete to the premier stage,
Nice.
Find that athlete that is just like, I don't know what I want to do. Oh, okay. I want to do triathlon. I want to swim, bike, and run. And then taking them from concept to fulfillment all the way up to, the professional level would be quite amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll do that. You'll do that. Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind for either of those, for both of you.
And if I learn to play the guitar, then I'm going to be playing a Howie guitar.
There you go.
What is something you want? Like, what do you wish for people to take away from this conversation? We've talked a lot about a lot of things. We've talked about meditation. We've talked about low points. We've talked about living your dreams, taking risk, beginner's brain, all of that. What's one thing you want them to take away?
One thing that I kept thinking about before we talked was how, for me, the guitar and music are kind of the ultimate meditation in a way, because the guitar, one of my favorite lyrics is, "This old guitar saved me once. I hope it can do it again." And it's basically, whenever I was down, whenever I was in trouble, the guitar always made me feel better. Growing up playing it, I played it since I was 12. And then it's just been a link to so many things. It's been a way to connect with my dad when I couldn't, it breaks down every barrier you can think of. I mean, racial barriers, political barriers. When you bring the music and the guitar together, it all goes away, and people can thrive together because of it. If that makes sense. I don't know if I said that well enough, but to me, that's so another one of those bright visions of mine is very similar to yours, BJ, is I would love to find a non-player and get them to the point where they do that as a career, where they play the guitar as a career, so that's another one of those things to fall back on.
Do you believe that anything is possible? Like if it's on our heart, it's there for a reason?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And to me, it's not about, is it going to happen for sure? But at least when I'm trying for that, it's what I want to do and it's how I want to live. You know what I mean? So even if you don't necessarily make it, at least I was living how I wanted to in the process, going towards it. If that makes sense.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's really,
I mean, why not?
It's really powerful. I think a lot of people are waiting to live. A lot of people are waiting for the other side of retirement, to get to retirement, to get to Friday, to get to the vacation. And when I work with people who maybe are in an unsatisfying job position or marriage, even like, I can't wait for my girls' weekend and all of that. And I always remind them but guess who's going on guess who's going on your girls' weekend?
You're right.
Like,
exactly.
You're going on your girls' weekend. And everything that's unsatisfactory in your life is somewhere deep down inside in those corners. And there's something off balance there. And we are here to experience joy. I really believe we're here to experience joy because at our essence, that's who we are.
Oh my gosh. And you guys personify that more than anybody. Let me tell you what. I know the risks you guys have taken too. So
well, there's a lot of self-regulation in there, Craig, as you have known me prior to being a meditator. Thank God. But you're fiery, I'm fiery. If I could be a fly on the wall of some of our conversations back in the day, oh my gosh.
Or one of our favorite stories ever that we share with people.
Oh my God, this is a crazy story.
Oh yes.
You need to
Do you
read
know what we're talking about?
I do. I know exactly what you're going to say.
something to do with porta-johns.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I knew it.
Can you share that story if you don't mind?
Oh, I'd love to.
Oh yeah, let's cap off this podcast with one of the most hysterical stories.
Epic story. Okay, so it's probably 4 a.m, maybe 4:30. I'm teaching at the time, and so I have to do my hard runs in the morning. And I'm running, and of course I'm doing a hard set, so of course I'm listening to Metallica, and I'm cranking, man. And nature calls, and I see a construction site, and it's like Shangri-La, you see the Porta-John, and it's like your body's like, yes, you're fine, you're gonna make it, you're fine, you're gonna do it. And so you do the duck walk over to the Porta-John, and you're like, it's all going to be fine. And I was worried when I saw it. I had the construction companies will lock them, sometimes zip ties or whatever. And of course, I go and I pull, and it's locked. And it's like your whole body just clenches, like, you told me I was going to get to go, and all of a sudden I can't. So I just started cussing a blue streak. I was so like, I'm not, obviously won't say it here. And so I'm down holding my knees, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bust into this thing. So I'm looking all around, and I find this big stick. I'm seriously going to pry this dang thing open. And I'm about to get it to pry open, and the dang door opens, and there's a guy inside. Dude, you can have it. You can have it. You can have it. And it's because I had Metallica blasting the whole time. I didn't hear the poor guy saying, dude, somebody in here. And the poor guy.
Yeah, so it's stories like that I always think about the other person telling the story. Like, you're never going to see that guy again, but like, he's been telling that story for years about how this psycho like started to pry open the Porta-John with a stick from that he was like, because he doesn't know the whole story, right? He doesn't know the story. Exactly. All he knows is that this total psycho who was blasting death metal tried to pry open and, and take him for dead. But oh my God, I love that story. BJ, I love how you figured out how to work that in there. That was amazing.
I've shared that story so many times because I think half our life is in Porta-Johns, since running around town and at races.
Yeah, and we're always like, no, we have the best. Have the best Porta-John story.
Hold on a minute. Awesome,
Craig. How can people check out your work, your guitars?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. I do Facebook, but I don't manage it very well. My wife does Facebook for me. But it's at Howie Guitars for both of them. Mainly Instagram is where I post most of my stuff. And then HowieGuitars.com, of course. And you can reach me by email there and everything. So
awesome. Yeah. And you guys wrote up a great story on the About Us section. So I encourage people to go and check it out. It's going to give you a little more background on Craig and Jen and all the amazing things they're doing in this world.
Yeah.
Craig, thank you so much.
Thanks,
buddy.
Guys.
So good to see you.
Thank you guys.
Being with us.
Yeah, that was awesome.